himself, because his force will be something spiritual, and his force will be felt like the movement and reflection of sunlight from one little mirror to another. So some people will feel it consciously and some others will feel him subconsciously. But the end result would be that everyone will be affected through the advent of Mahdi. So the Islamic Union will be formed by Mahdi himself. And when we look at religious texts and the sayings about the Mahdi, we know that all different kinds of technologies which have been invented in this century and in our days, in contemporary times, are for the use of Mahdi. The Internet, for example, has been invented for the Mahdi, because Internet eases the communication of Mahdi and all things about him. This global economic crisis we are going through is something for the advent of Mahdi, which prepared humanity for welcoming the advent of Mahdi and Mahdi himself. Of course, we can talk about many other signs which hint at the advent of the Mahdi: the war between Iran and Iraq, the siege of Afghanistan, and the drying of the waters of great rivers like Euphrates, for example, and the sun and moon eclipses during the month of Ramadan, and the coming of big comets, which was in 1981, as you know, and the siege of Mecca, and great explosions in the sun, and a bad incident which hints at September 11, the great genocides and disappearance of a great and big army, and the occupation of Baghdad, and the restructuring of Iraq, through which we are going right now, and the greening of the deserts, and great hurricanes, the building of tall buildings, skyscrapers, and all different kinds of technologies. For example, in one text, we have a description which says that people will be talking on their whips' ends. So that whip refers to our mobile phones, perhaps, because when you look at it, that looks like a whip, and people are talking on the end of their cables somehow. So we have thousands of signs which are similar to these, and all these signs have been proved to be real and factual things. In these explanations, we also have definitions of what record the technology of recording voices and images, for example. So all these things are happening and will be happening in this end of times. There are hundreds of signs which are like these. And one interesting thing is that all these things have occurred in the last 20 and 30 years in the order they have been given. So this is a miracle in itself, because in no period in history all these great numbers of signs have been realized in this order and in this frequency. So this is a great miracle, but some people are not aware of these things, and there are similar signs which hint at the resurrection of Jesus Christ. So I can tell you that in 10 to 15 years' time, people will be surprised, and they will be witnessing many surprising incidents.
I want sort of a two-part question. Does the siege of Mecca that you just referenced refer to the 1979 Juhayman al-Otaibi occupation of the Great Mosque in Mecca? And secondly, what is your view, and what should the Muslim view be of leaders in the past who have claimed that they were the Mahdi and started movements based on that, such as Juhayman al-Otaibi, before that Muhammad Ahmed in Sudan, or before that Ibn Tumart in North Africa, and so on?
What's your question about the siege of Mecca?
Was that, when he referenced the siege of Mecca, was that to the 1979 Juhayman al-Otaibi occupation of the Great Mosque?
Well, to begin with, I can tell you that if we are talking of such claims, if we are talking about people who claim themselves to be the Mahdi, That is the first proof which tells us that they cannot be the Mahdi. Because in the Islamic way of thinking, the Mahdi will not claim himself as the Mahdi. We will understand that he is the Mahdi when we will see that Islam will rule all the world, and when we see the Mahdi praying with Jesus Christ. So when we see these two things happen, we will then say that God knows this is the Mahdi and God knows this is Jesus Christ. Because essentially, in the Islamic way of thinking, the Mahdi will never talk of himself as Mahdi, and he will never come up with such a claim. Likewise, his followers will not tell others that he is the Mahdi. Because having such a claim and presenting such a claim to other people is a very serious disbelief, and which would situate you against the Quran and the Quranic system, because one person might go to heaven or to hell, and that depends on the actions that person has committed on this earth, and you need revelation to claim yourself as Mahdi. And since the last series of revelations came to our Prophet Muhammad, we cannot talk about any more revelations. So this is complete disbelief, and the Mahdi will never claim himself that he is the Mahdi, and only people will understand that.
I'm curious then, why do you think that some of these men in the past who claimed to be the Mahdi and obviously weren't, were very successful, at least for a time, in having a lot of followers and actually even taking power? I mean, Juhaybin al-Otabi wasn't, but Muhammad Ahmed took over Sudan, Ibn Tumart took over North Africa, the Fatimids, for instance, took over Egypt in the Middle Ages, although they were a bit different, being Ismaili and not Sunni. But to what do you attribute the fact that these men sometimes gained great deals of followers despite the fact that they were false Mahdis?
Well, we can of course talk about false Mahdis and false Messiahs. In the Bible, for example, we have descriptions and signs of false Messiahs. And if you read the Bible, we are informed that we will first have false Messiahs. And one important point is that we need to be very careful about the physical appearance of the Mahdi, because in religious texts we have been offered a very detailed physical description of the Mahdi himself. And if we look at those descriptions, we will know that he will be someone with a very wide eyebrow, a very wide face. He will have arched eyebrows, and he will have a small nose. He will be bearded. There will be a dot on his cheeks, and there will be another dot on his over his eyebrows. He will have black hair, and he will have wide eyes. He will be of medium height, and like our Prophet, he has a dot on his back, and he is also coming from the lineage of our Prophet Muhammad, and he is from the lineage of the Sayyid. And his gait is also very characteristic, because he will be walking his legs somehow apart from one another. And our Prophet Muhammad has described him as someone who will be very effective, and who will have a glamorous appearance. And he will have another dot on his right leg. So when we look at Sayyid Nursi's descriptions, we know that the Mahdi will come after the lunar year of 1400. And so there are over 30 signs which hint at the advent of the Mahdi. And throughout Islamic history, none of these signs have occurred in proximity and together. So this is a very important fact, because in the near past we have had these signs all together. So since the lunar year 1400, we have been going through these signs. So we need to be careful about 3 points: the physical appearance of the Mahdi, and the signs, the prophecies, the incidents throughout the world which would hint at the advent of the Mahdi, and the timing of the advent of the Mahdi.